All right, what you want to make sure is your breaker is off for the room. We found out that it is this particular one, and you want to double check that and shut that off before you do touch these wires and mess around with these wires. So make sure your power is off. Test it, be safe.
Okay, Chris is getting ready to install 4 of these in his ceiling of this master bedroom, where he's got the blue patches on the ceiling there, and there, and there. And so what he's going to do initially is we're going to check and see if we have a hot wire here. The lamp is controlled by a wall switch. We've already taken off the hot switched black one from that. And we're going to take the white neutral off and then remove the lamp. And then we're quite sure that this is the hots here, because it's taking a white wire, which would be the loop down to the wall switch. And this is the other switched leg off of that. And as you can see, they're both together coming out of the same cable here. So that pretty well tells me without testing it that this is hot, but we're going to check a voltage tester. So I'm going to take this off and remove the ground for this, and then just this will then be free. Okay, we've removed the wire nuts, what we believe is the hot and the neutral. And then we're going to pause here where I get my voltage tester and then turn the voltage back on temporarily just to make sure we got voltage all the time between those two.
All right, once again, to test this temporarily, we're going to flip back on our breaker. We are now hot. And so we're going to do just a test of our equipment to make sure it is good to go.
So I tested in a known live circuit already, make sure nothing's happened. As you can see, I like the Wiggy, it has a little red indicator and it hums. I don't know if you can hear that humming, but it hums when it's live. So now we're going to go up, check between the suspected hot all the time and the neutral. That's generally how they wired these homes. And it is hot.
It is hot.
And we're going to, let's see, turn the switch off, right?
So now the switch will be off. That was on, now the switch is off.
We'll check it again to make sure, and it is hot all the time. Show it here where you can see it.
Okay. You can see the Wiggy. Okay.
And then we're going to go, this should be off now because it's a switched leg. We're going to go between this and the neutral, and it is off. You want to turn the switch back on. Now it should be hot, and it is. Okay. So now we're going to turn the electricity back off. So now to double confirm that the electricity is off. Nothing here, and then nothing here. Okay, so we're good. Now we can handle it with our bare hand. It's called lineman's pliers. They're good for twisting wires together or untwisting them. So I'm going to untwist these. And by the way, you always want to twist your wires together, even when you're using these twist-on caps, because alone twisting them on, I've come in behind many electricians or homeowners who haven't done that and you know, troubleshot the circuits that weren't working. Okay, what I'm going to do now to mark this white wire is I'm going to put a piece of black tape on it indicating it's the switched leg, and that'll mark it for when we get in here and run our wire to the other. So now it's marked, showing it's a switched loop, and this is the corresponding switched leg that we can use eventually to turn on a fan, perhaps, or whatever we want to do. So I'm going to go ahead and loosen all of these wires, and then we're going to cut a hole for each of the fixtures, and then fish cable over to them. So let me go ahead and disconnect these wires again. These are our neutrals. I'm not going to wrap any black tape around that because they will remain neutrals. And by the way, these are 14 gauge wires, which is proper because they're protected by a 15 amp circuit breaker. And then here's my ground. I'm going to pull it down. All right, this is 14 gauge wire. Many electricians use when they wire a house because they wire the lighting circuits on a 15 amp breaker, which is proper for 14 gauge wire. You never want to go 14 gauge wire on a 20 amp circuit breaker because that's too large capacity for it. Now you'll notice that the insulation on the cable is white on the 14, and if you look at the cable on the floor here, that is 12 gauge wire, which we're going to use.
This is 12 gauge.
Because that just happens to be what we have on hand. That is black, white, and red, so it's good for running other circuit applications, which we might need in this particular thing. Also, just happens to be all I have on hand at the moment. So what we're going to do now is we need to get up in here, and we're going to cut one test hole over here and see if we can fish over to it, but we need to remove this box. If you listen, that sounds solid, but if you go on the other side, it's not so much, or here, or here. So it tells me that the truss in the ceiling is over here on this side and the box is fastened to it. So we're going to have to cut a large enough opening around this box and try to preserve the sheetrock so he could put it back. He's going to scrape this coating and put a skim coat on, and then it'll look nice, so it'll all be covered when he finishes.
I'm going to film a quick segment. Still a little dusty in here, so I want to put my mask back on. But after we popped open the hole, unfortunately there is spray, which is good for insulation, but it's going to be harder to work with, meaning running our wire. We're going to try to preserve as much as we can, but we're going to have to pull some of that down. We do have some other insulation that's easier to work with that we will be shoving in a majority of these areas. And so we're going to pull that down, clean up our mess.
Okay, as you can see, we've got the sheetrock pulled back so we can see what's going on. We're not going to reuse this box just because it's kind of chintzy. We're going to put in this one, a solid metal one, but it's not going to fit in between here. So we're going to take down this one on this side because it's broken already. It just goes from here to here, and the intention was to support this box. So we will take this guy out. Our box, which we're going to put up here with screws, and it'll fit right here about centered where the other one was, because it's centered in the middle of the room. We'll pull all these cables back out of this box, put it into this one, get it ready to run cabling over to the new fixtures.
Now to remove your cabling, especially on this one, but you probably will have something similar, there's going to be holders. As you can see there, you have a nut right over here where my thumb is, and one right over there where my thumb is. We need to loosen that. That's holding down our cables. We'll show you the new modern build ones. That's going to loosen your cables to be able to slide them out. All right, now we took a tape measure, we measured to the center of the room, and we're going to put our new box, and this is actually kind of cool. If you can see that, it says a little arrow there with it says center box, or C box, I should say. That is a CL center line box. So we measured it, and unfortunately we were off a little bit, but we found our center line right here. We marked it. And so what it's gonna do is it's gonna literally line up with that arrow, and we're gonna screw it in so it matches that center line right there. You got some holes right up here. We're just gonna be doing one screw on each end of the truss here. We'll show you that when we're done.
Okay, we're gonna put the cable clamps in. So I take a pair of alignment pliers in one corner and just knock it out like that, bring it in like so. Twist it, and that's out. Do the same thing on the other side because the cable's going in both sides. Twist it. You'll see I've already got the, no I don't, the screw fell out. Oh, there it is. And it's threaded. Usually these boxes have one or two threaded holes. They always have at least one. I'm getting it ready for the ground. Then the cables go in like so. Many boxes like this, metal boxes, will have, you know, the cable clamps already in place. This particular box I bought for my pole barn wiring, and I was left over from that job, and I didn't need that kind. So take your alignment pliers and twist it so you know you're going to be like this, so you can get to those screws. You don't want to have them facing the other direction, obviously. This one goes in this side, and the ring nut. I call these squeeze connectors, not to be confused with BX connectors, which are only for BX, okay? And they're nice and tight, and they're loose, ready for the cable installation. All right.
Alrighty, our box is in nice and solid. We tilted this one a little bit when inserting it there so we didn't split the wood. Straight up, we did put 4 in, 1, 2, 3, 4. Our box is nice and secure, ready for cabling. And the reason we went with 4 on this particular box is what we probably want to do eventually is a ceiling fan. It does get a little warm in the summer times here. We have HVAC heat, but no AC. So just a little bit more sturdier for potential a fan. All right, bring in your cable and do about a 1/4 inch or so. We went a little bit longer than that on that one. But what you want is you want the insulation of the cable wiring past your point here, so no bare wires are sticking out. Tighten that down nice and firm. You don't have to overdo it, but nice and firm here so those cables aren't going anywhere.
Okay, the cable grounds in the cables were too short, so what I'm going to do, I got a piece of scrap cable, and I'm pulling the wire out in order to, there's a black one in there too, which I don't really need. But in order to get the bare ground wire, which is covered in the, as you can see, the paper insulation, because it's a ground and only carries something when something is a short or a fault. So now I have a nice piece of wire in order to make my ground wire to go onto the green screw that we put in earlier. As you can see, these cable strippers have these holes here, and the reason is so you can form a nice little loop in order to put around your screw. So I'm going to go up and attach this into the box, make it a slight curve like that. And anyway, it is right there. I've got it preformed, so it will go like that. I'll tighten. You always want to put it so that you're tightening clockwise, so it'll tighten up and force that loop a little tighter around the screw. You want a good solid ground with a metal box. Okay, now we won't fasten those together yet until we get our cable in.
All right, guys, so we used a fish tape for going down over here, going up this light, because we're going to start with this light right here first. What's nice about putting a big access hole here is I can step on my ladder, and even though there's it's somewhat of a crawl space, but I wouldn't even call it a crawl space. I was able to get on my ladder, come up here, see the fish tape, and be able to pull it through. And what's nice is, because there's some access, I'll be able to see for the next hole and guide it over that way, which will be a lot harder without a helper and without a little bit of a pitched roof access here. So we got the fish tape, sorry, my mask, we have the fish tape coming down, and our connector is right here.
Now we have to get the cable ready to be pulled by the fish tape, so you have to strip back the insulation. So we start right in the middle, a sharp utility knife, come right down. Now this modern Romex is very well insulated. As you can see, although I cut through the paper insulation, it hasn't affected the wire, but you do have to be careful. So anyway, you get that up here. You want to angle away from your cable so that you don't cut into it. Pull this back, again, cut it away. Now we're ready to go into the fish tape. I'm going to use the bare wire to be my pulled. So you just fold that over like so, and then we're going to, for a long run, I would probably go ahead and, well, I think I will put some tape on that so you can get it off quickly. Start down here where the end of it is. You don't need to wrap it like it was actually insulating it, but you do need to go past these wires so they won't catch. And give yourself a good tail on the thing, double it over so you can pull it off when you get up through there. Okay, now we're ready to pull. That's how the process works. Heat it up. And there we go over there on that
side. Now, something to note is our trusses right here, we fished it over the top. You don't want to go through the insulation here, especially if you have spraying, because you're just going to be a mess. It's going to go everywhere. So we went up above the top of these trusses here. And now we pull through.
We're going to go on this side, and we need to have about 6 inches inside the box. Plenty, so I'm going to cut it here. Again, strip my insulation back, about 6 inches or more. There are tools to do that, but this is very handy with replaceable blades. Okay, so then I'm going to feed it in to the box through the same cable squeeze connector. So I've got the insulation about a 1/4 inch inside the box. You don't want too much because it just clogs up the box. Go ahead and tighten down on your clamp. Again, just want it firm so it doesn't pull out of there. That's good. Okay, now I'm going to take the ground wires, put them all together. You can see this one was very short, so that will be a challenge. If I was going to put another cable in here, I would wait to do this step, but we're not going to put another cable in there, and these ground wires are very short anyway, so it is going to be a challenge to get them all together. Fact is, if they're real short like that, what I may want to do is put a jumper between the short ones and the longer ones, which I think I am going to do. I get the short guys together, along with a jumper, which I happen to have a pre-made one already. And you need to get some new wire nuts. Don't use your old wire nuts because they are not going to hold like a dual will. Bend this back, get my lineman's pliers in position. I can start these short ones together first and then add the jumper. It's going to get pretty tangled up there pretty quickly. Actually, maybe I can use without having to put a jumper on. Let's bring one of the big new ones in. Put that on there. Okay, we're doing good so far. Add the final ground. Always want to twist the same way, which is the wire nut will go on clockwise, so you want to twist your wires clockwise. These are things I learned as an apprentice electrician. Been following this method ever since. Always works for me. And then snip off the excess. Use your wire nut. Hold everything in place. Oftentimes, I will wrap tape at the end of a wire nut, but I don't need to in this case because I can feel it's in there solid. Push it up out of the way. Okay, this will be your new run. These are your blacks to that. You've got your hots are right here. So we'll put the hots together. This will be switched off of the switch leg, which will go to this one, and this one will be going to the hot. So this one again goes down to the wall switch, comes back on the white wire that we wrapped a piece of tape around, and that will feed our black cable that goes to the first light. So that's the plan. So rather than taking the time to go through all of that, I'm just going to go ahead and wire it now so you can see everything right. We'll get a round plate and put a blank on it, and then he can put a fan on there at some point in the future. Okay, this will show you the connections before I put it back in. Remember, this white wire is a switched, a hot coming from the wall switch. It will control the other 4 lights. So that's the black wire going from our yellow cable that we just pulled in. And then the neutrals, there's a neutral from the power source, and then another neutral that would, or 2 other neutrals, and they're all tied together. And then the 3 hot wires, including the one going down to the switch loop, are all tied together. And then since we used a cable that I had on hand that had red wire in it, we're just going to put a single wire nut on there just to keep it out of trouble. I'm going to push all those back into the box, and I will show it to you after I've done that. You can see I've wrapped tape around the wire nuts. That's to keep these wires from pulling out, because it is a lot of pressure as I push these wires in here, and I don't want them to come loose. So as you can see, it kind of puts some pressure on these wires. So if you do the tape, you don't have trouble with it, but I've come in behind a number of electricians and homeowners who haven't done that step, and anyway, to fix their problem. We'll put a round mud ring on here, and then we're good to go, at the least with this box.
All right, now we are testing the wires, and so we hit the breaker box outside the door back on, and our switch is off right now. And now we're going to hit the switch here.
We got it. Okay, off.
And off.
All right, so now we'll go ahead and cut the other holes, fish the wires through, and then when we get to the installation part, of course, turn off the breaker.
Okay, so we're going to turn the breaker back off after testing. All right, we've fished our wires here through the appropriate holes, as we can see there. Now we are wiring the first box of the recessed LED lights. So here is our box right here. We have 2 cables running into the hole here, and do it on the flat side so they're just stacked on top of each other, sliding through. We have our 1/4 inch hanging out this side here for installation purposes, and we have our wires of our box here and here with all of our other wires here, and our connector here we're going to get to in just a second. So let's wire this up and then we'll show you how we wired it. All right, here we go. Here is what the box looks like. This is, again, the double cable. It's going to get a little different when we just have the single. Then we won't have, obviously, two blacks with the box black, etc. But let's go ahead and take a look at this here. So all our three whites are in a yellow nut cap with electrical tape around there. We have two grounds going in with our box ground going into this one here. Two blacks, and then the box black over here going into one. And then again, because it's the only cable we had, we have an extra red. We've cut it down to size, cap that as well. You guys probably won't have that, so kind of ignore that. Now the box is a little small, so unfortunately that is a con that we have noticed so far, so we're gonna see how we can get these in here. A little bit larger of a box would be nice, obviously for weight capability, but if it extended like another inch and went up, or even an inch and a half and went up, just for a little bit more room right there would be nice, especially if you're running two cables. And just to clarify, when your original wire is coming through, you're fishing and jumping to the next LED driver box. So your first one will have two going in, your second LED driver box will have two going in, meaning two sets of Romex cable. Your last one will not, going to your last driver box, as I went clockwise around the room. So LED pot light number 1 will have two, 2 will have 2, 3 will have 2, and then as I jump to the fourth one, that will only have one Romex cable going in, because again, you're using two sets to jump to the next one, as in one going in and one going out to feed power to the next box. Okay, we're gonna put this in, lock it up, show you. Okay, a little tight, but it wasn't as hard as I initially thought, but definitely cut the wires down to size so that it's not too long. But make sure, and that's why you definitely need to use electrical tape, because that pressure of you bending them, you don't want those coming out. Now, what you wanna do is you wanna make sure that flap shut and stays shut, which it does. I like what I'm seeing. Now, for a little added security, I saw another YouTuber do this. We're gonna go ahead and do an electrical line tape around the box so the box doesn't flap open in there for some oddball reason. All right, let's go ahead and test that one light. We're gonna go ahead and kick back on our house breaker. There we go, we are now hot. And so, obviously we do need to pair them with the app and Wi-Fi, so when I do hit the on button, they will probably blink, or maybe not come on and blink in about 5 seconds or so. So here we go, we're now hot. I like what I'm seeing. So they probably will start blinking a little bit to be able to pair, there you go. And so we know that we connected those the way they should. And I'll show you the locking mechanism where the wires adapt to the box there. They have a nice little safety twisting feature to them. Now over here, we have our hot wire capped off for safety while we are testing it. And so just keep that in mind as well. And the reason why they're not all capped off in just that one is because that's the line running hot right now over there. That particular one is not, and either is that one there, the way we fished the wire. So again, just to make it clear, on each box, you're gonna knock out that little circle right there. I just use the back of my lineman's pliers, and then you're gonna have to insert something like this. It doesn't have to be exactly like this, it just needs to hold down your wires. And then we have our little screw for the other side here, the threaded, just like this here. Now I do wanna also let you know that my drywall on my ceiling is a 1/2 inch drywall, which is fantastic for the placement of your holes. So I do wanna talk to you about the placement of your holes. And so what I actually did is I kind of spit shot it a little bit. You can do it through calculations. I used a tape measure eventually, but I decided that I have a queen size bed and I wanted it to go over the side of the bed and the nightstand, not just over the nightstand, not just over the bed. And I wanted it visually appealing where it's a nice space over here. I went with 37.5 inches with my particular room over, and 29.5 inches from the back wall, each exact one. The lights give you a cutout where you can draw right around that. So pencil the template, but a cheater thing that I did is to know exactly where my center line was. I made a pencil mark, I lined up my pencil mark underneath, made my circle, and cut it out with a drywall knife. The reason I went with a drywall knife, now I'll have all this linked in the description box below, the tools, etc. The reason I went with a drywall knife, it's better than using an oscillating tool like this because sometimes you don't know what's up there. And with the drywall knife, you can kind of carefully cut it, and then all of a sudden if you come to something, you're like, okay, there's something fishy going on there. With an automatic electric tool, you could just blow right through wiring, HVAC systems, ducts, you know, you want to be a little careful. So anyway, what I'm getting to is this is 1/2 inch, and this is perfect for trusses or studs, whatever you want to call it, inside of your ceiling. The wood. The wood trusses is what I'm talking about right here. So let's go ahead and go over to this first one here. So I actually hit a truss on exactly where I wanted to place this. I do need to clean this up a little bit because the wood truss is right underneath that sheetrock there. But because these are so low profile with 1/2 inch sheetrock, they actually can slip in right below the wooden truss, which is awesome. If this sheetrock were any thinner, I'd probably hit the wooden truss and it would have a small gap. But let me show you this one, super flush, and I'm gonna be mudding that as well. I scraped my popcorn ceiling and that looks fantastic. So literally in the center of that is a wooden truss, but because they're so low profile, that gap right there clears in 1/2 inch. And so the back of that light is literally right on a truss, which is awesome because they're so low profile. So the connectors have a locking tab where you insert it and then you twist it and that locks it into place, which allows you to not have to worry about it coming disconnected. And the box, if you do have a joist and you do want to screw it into, the box does have one hole here and one hole down here where you could lift that in and screw it into a joist. It's so lightweight. I'm just gonna slip it in on top of the drywall, and I'm definitely not concerned about the weight up there at all. All right, each light comes with an LED driver box and connector. It opens up for your wiring there and clamp shut. You have your wire nut caps here, your hinges to hang it on your drywall, and of course your LED light, which is super thin with connector and hinge hooks on either side here. All right, guys, I want to show you a little tip of the trick. This is why kids read your directions. So I installed the springs wrong. That's why it's a little bit loose right here. I was like, what in the world is going on? So let me carefully take this down with 2 hands, and I'll show you what I did wrong with the spring hinges that click on top of your drywall. All right, they need to go on like this. The little loop goes on the left-hand side. The spring goes on that side. You squeeze in, and the other spring goes on this side right here. This is what the outside looks like right here with it curved just a little bit like that. Now what happens is, I'm gonna have to do this with 2 hands, but you spring these back, both of them, as you insert it up, and then the springs will go whap after you have put it in gear. I'll try not to block the shot here. Again, fold both of them up, get your wire out of the way, place it on the edges of the drywall just like this, and you heard that one clamp, and the other one's not going anywhere. Nice and flush. You're gonna hear a click. That's the way it's supposed to be. All right, so I have them all on read now, and again, it's just slightly warmer, but I do like that, than the defaults. I might even try a little bit more warmer than that, but I think that looks absolutely stunning. Sure, 4 lights in a master bedroom might be a little overkill for some. Maybe you guys would get away with 2 lights, but I like 4 lights myself, and I'm gonna be doing this same thing with these lights all throughout the house. Maybe the smaller rooms, I'll only do 2 lights, but look at every corner just being lit up there. No dark shadows casting. Now let me tell you guys something. One of my first couple places didn't have any recessed lighting, and you actually had to have bedroom lamps was your only light. And once you go recessed, which was my 2 previous places had recessed lighting. Once you go recessed, you never go back, to be honest with you. The reason why is because you no longer are living in the dark anymore with like fumbling for like one little lamp over there, or one little light right on top right here, which a lot of people are so used to, but treat yourself. I think these lights have done a fantastic job. I'm looking forward to really dialing them in. Again, in the description box right below the video is going to be the link for this exact same slim LED lights by the company Lumary. Again, I got the 4-pack. They do sell a single, they sell a 2-pack, they sell an 8-pack, a 12-pack. Pick yourself up some lights. Easy to connect, obviously a little bit of electrical work, but overall a thumbs up in my book. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. Hit that thumbs up button if you wouldn't mind on your way out. It helps with the YouTube algorithm and helps the channel. Stay tuned for the full remodel of this 10-acre farmhouse. We got master bath, bedroom, trimming, deck work, frisbee disc golf course, a gym shop. It's nutso, so make sure you're subscribed to that, and your links are again below, as with tools I use for this video. Thank you guys. Have a great day. Don't let the party stop, guys. Hit one of these videos, continue to watch, and we'll see you soon.